Hey everyone, and welcome back. I'm really glad you're here again, because today we're diving deep into one of the most powerful and unpredictable gods of all Greek mythology, Poseidon, Lord of the Sea. His trident could summon earthquakes, his rage could sink entire fleets, and his favor could calm the fiercest storm. From his rivalry with Athena to his wrath against Odysseus, Poseidon's story is one of fury, pride, and divine power. So, before the story starts, a quick reminder to like and subscribe. This would actually help me a lot, so thank you very much. And then, as always, sit back, relax, and let's journey together into the depth of the ocean and the legend of the Stormbringer himself. Enjoy the story.
Poseidon, god of the sea, before the waves had names, before mortals dared to sail across the unknown blue, there was only the sea, vast, untamed, eternal. And from its churning depths rose the god who ruled it all. Poseidon, lord of the deep, earthshaker, stormbringer, brother of Zeus and Hades. To the Greeks, the ocean was more than water. It was a living power. It could feed you, carry you, destroy you. It was mystery, beauty, and terror wrapped in a single breath. And within that endless expanse, they imagined a god whose moods shaped the tides and whose fury could crumble empires. When the great war of the Titans ended, the world was divided among the three brothers. Zeus took the heavens, Hades the underworld, and to Poseidon fell the sea, a realm without end, restless and deep as eternity itself. His kingdom was not of stone and sky, but of shifting waves, of light breaking through the surface, of endless life moving unseen below. But Poseidon was more than a ruler. He was the sea personified. His laughter was the crash of surf against the cliffs. His anger, the roar of the storm. And when he struck his trident upon the earth, the ground itself trembled. For he was the god who could shake the very bones of the world. Yet beneath his power lay pride, an emotion as vast as the waters he commanded. He could bless a sailor with calm seas, or swallow a fleet without mercy. He could build a city's fortune, or sink it beneath the waves. Every storm, every calm horizon, every distant whisper of thunder, it was Poseidon's voice. And so the people prayed. Fishermen, sailors, kings, all left offerings by the shore, hoping to earn his favor, or at least his indifference. For they knew the truth. You could not defy the sea. You could only respect it and fear it. But who was Poseidon really? A tyrant cloaked in water and rage? A creator whose power sustained life itself? Or a god caught forever between fury and creation? Between the calm and the storm? This is his story. The story of Poseidon, the storm that never sleeps. Part 1. The Rise of the Sea God. When the dust of the Titan War finally settled and the heavens ceased their trembling, the three brothers stood before a world reborn: Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon. Together they had overthrown their father, Cronus, and the old order of the Titans had fallen into the depths of Tartarus. But victory brought with it a question that would shape the fate of all creation. How would they divide what they had conquered? The brothers cast lots, for none wished to appear greedy before the others. By chance, or perhaps by destiny, the sky fell to Zeus, vast and open. The underworld, the realm of shadows and silence, went to Hades, and to Poseidon, the middle brother, was given the sea. At first he stood at its edge, gazing into that endless horizon. No walls, no boundaries, no throne of stone, no mountain to claim. Only the ever-shifting expanse, alive, breathing, eternal. It was chaos and beauty combined, and Poseidon felt something stir deep within him. Here he would reign. Here he would carve his kingdom in motion. With a strike of his trident, The waves rose to greet him. The seas swirled and bowed, acknowledging their new master. From the foam and current, he built his palace, shimmering with coral and pearls deep beneath the waves at Aegae. Its halls were alive with light, its pillars made from living coral, and the song of the sea filled its corridors. Poseidon's symbol, the trident, was more than a weapon. Forged by the Cyclopes, it was the embodiment of his dominion, capable of stirring tempests, summoning waves, or calming the waters to glass. With it, he could strike the earth and make it tremble, earning him the name Enosikthon, the Earthshaker. For the Greeks believed that earthquakes were born of Poseidon's anger, when his trident struck deep beneath the land, echoing the fury of the ocean below. Yet Poseidon's power was not confined to the sea alone. He was also the tamer of horses, creatures said to be born from the sea foam when his trident first touched the waves. To the Greeks, horses were symbols of speed, freedom, and unbridled strength, the same qualities that defined the god himself. Chariots pulled by immortal seahorses carried him across the waves, his passage marked by roaring tides and thunderous surf. Every shore, every harbor, every distant island whispered his name. Sailors offered wine to the sea before voyages, praying that Poseidon's mood would be calm. Cities built temples in his honor, like the great sanctuary at Sunion, where white marble columns rose high above the cliffs, a place where the sea met the sky and mortals could glimpse eternity. In Corinth, in Helike, in the scattered islands of the Aegean, he was worshipped as both protector and destroyer. To please him was to survive. To anger him was to vanish beneath the waves. No god was so intimately tied to the fate of those who lived by the sea. But Poseidon was more than a god of water. He was a reflection of life itself. The ocean gave and took without reason. It was both cradle and grave, gentle and merciless. And as humanity grew, so did their understanding of him. Not as a distant deity, but as the very essence of the world's heartbeat. The Greeks would come to say, all begins and ends with the sea, and Poseidon was its soul. Part 2. The Contest of Athens, Rivalry with Athena. There was once a time when a newborn city rose from the rocky soil of Attica, a place destined to become one of the greatest centers of thought and power the world would ever know. But before its first walls were built, before its name was carved into memory, its people faced a divine dilemma. Which god would be their protector? Two mighty deities stepped forward to claim the honor: Poseidon, lord of the sea, and Athena, goddess of wisdom and strategy. The gods themselves gathered on the Acropolis to witness what would become one of the most famous contests in myth. The people waited below, their hearts divided between two powers that could not be more different: the storm and the mind. Poseidon was the first to act. With his trident raised high, he struck the earth with a force that made the ground quake. From the rock burst forth a great spring, its waters glittering like silver under the sun. The crowd gasped. The god of the sea had brought them a gift from his realm, a symbol of power, wealth, and dominion. But as they bent closer, they tasted the water and found it to be salt, beautiful but undrinkable, a reminder of Poseidon's might, but also of his untamed nature. Then came Athena, calm, deliberate, her eyes gleaming with wisdom. She stepped forward and planted something small and unassuming into the same earth, a seed. The people watched in silence as it took root and grew, unfolding into a tree of silvery leaves, the first olive tree, a gift of peace, nourishment, and prosperity. From it, they could make oil for light, wood for building, fruit for sustenance. It was not a symbol of dominance, but of endurance. The gods looked upon both offerings, the power of the sea and the promise of the land, and turned to the people to decide. The mortals, humbled by the olive's quiet strength, chose Athena, and so the city was named Athens, not Poseidonia. For the first time, the sea god's pride was wounded. His fury rolled like thunder across the waves. He who had offered the force of nature itself had been rejected for wisdom, for thought. The choice cut deep. In some tales, Poseidon's wrath brought floods upon the Attic plain, a storm of sorrow and rage. Yet in others, he merely withdrew, his heart forever bound to that moment, the eternal reminder that even gods could be denied. But beneath that myth lies something more profound. The contest between Poseidon and Athena was not simply about a city's name. It was about the eternal struggle between emotion and intellect, between instinct and reason, between the unpredictable sea and the steady land. Poseidon represented the raw pulse of nature, powerful, passionate, wild. Athena embodied balance, logic, and creation. The people's choice reflected humanity's own evolution, the moment when civilization turned from survival toward knowledge, from chaos toward order. And yet, even as Athens rose in glory, Poseidon's presence never vanished. The Greeks still prayed to him for safe voyages, for rain upon their crops, for mercy in the face of storms. For they knew that the mind might guide them, but the sea could still take everything. And so the rivalry endured, not as hatred, but as a reminder that wisdom might rule the land, but passion forever commands the waves. Part 3. The Wrath of the Sea. Poseidon's Anger and Vengeance. Poseidon's power was not measured by calm waters or gentle tides, for his nature was as unpredictable as the sea itself. One moment he could cradle a ship upon glassy waves, guiding sailors safely to harbor. The next, he could summon a storm so violent that mountains of water rose against the hull, tearing it apart and dragging the unprepared into the abyss. The Greeks knew that Poseidon's favor was not given lightly. Tributes were essential. Wine poured into the foam, offerings laid upon the shore, prayers whispered into the salt wind. To forget him was to tempt the ocean's fury, and to defy him was to invite disaster. Tales abound of kings and sailors whose arrogance stirred his wrath. King Minos, who attempted to claim divine power and ignored Poseidon's gifts, suffered punishment that rippled through his reign. Sailors who scorned his name found themselves lost to storms, their cries swallowed by the endless waves. Perhaps no story captures his vengeance more vividly than that of Odysseus. The cunning hero, trapped in the cave of Polyphemus, blinded the monstrous Cyclops, a son of Poseidon himself. From that moment, the god's anger became relentless. He raised the seas against Odysseus, turning every voyage into a nightmare. Ships were dashed upon rocks, winds tore sails from masts, and islands seemed to vanish beneath an unending storm. The hero wandered for years, each wave a reminder that the ocean god's memory was long and his wrath unyielding. Poseidon's anger was not arbitrary, however. It was a reflection of balance, a punishment for hubris, for disrespect, for failing to acknowledge the forces beyond mortal control. The ocean, like its master, demanded recognition, reverence, and caution. Those who sailed without offering prayers, who boasted against the tides, who challenged the god's dominion, found themselves at the mercy of a power older than any kingdom. In art and poetry, his storms were described as living entities, colossal and roaring, with waves like arms striking from all directions. Thunder echoed across the cliffs, lightning danced upon the sea, and ships vanished, as if the ocean itself had swallowed them whole. Mariners told tales of monstrous waters, of towering walls of sea, of nights when the very horizon disappeared beneath Poseidon's fury. Yet even in his wrath there was a terrible beauty, the dance of wind, wave, and divine will, a performance of nature's raw, untamed majesty. And so Poseidon became both feared and revered. His anger was a warning and a lesson, The sea obeys no mortal, tolerates no arrogance, and never forgets. To survive his fury, one needed humility, skill, and respect, a delicate understanding of a god whose moods shaped the very world. For the Greeks, Poseidon was the storm incarnate, the wrath of the deep, and the eternal reminder that life, like the sea, is governed by forces far beyond human control. And every crashing wave, every shipwreck, every tempest was his voice, loud, commanding, and impossible to ignore. Part 4. The Creator and the Tamer. Dual Nature of Poseidon. Poseidon was not merely the god of storms and destruction. He was also a creator, a tamer, and a force of life as vital as the sea itself. His realm beneath the waves was alive with beauty, mystery, and power. From his palace of coral and pearl, carved in the deepest waters where sunlight barely touched, he ruled over creatures both marvelous and strange. Dolphins leapt through the currents at his command, while sea nymphs danced along the swaying kelp, singing songs that echoed across the ocean floor. The waters themselves shimmered with a magic that was his alone, a living testament to his dominion. With a sweep of his trident, Poseidon could calm storms that threatened sailors, turning violent seas into tranquil waters. He could also stir hidden currents to bring life to barren shores, creating islands where none had existed before. Every wave he raised, every tide he guided, carried the pulse of his power, both destructive and nurturing. His children reflected this duality. Triton, with his conch shell, could summon the winds and signal the movements of the sea. Pegasus, sprung from the blood of Medusa, leapt from Poseidon's domain into the skies, a bridge between the waters and the heavens. The Cyclopes, born of the sea and of divine purpose, forged the tools of the gods, including Poseidon's own trident, instruments of both creation and destruction. Monsters and heroes alike bore his blood, showing that his influence could create marvels as easily as calamity. To the Greeks, Poseidon embodied the paradox of the ocean itself. He was chaos and order intertwined, fury and mercy combined. The sea could cradle a ship one moment and destroy it the next. It could bring fertile waters to the shore or drown entire coastlines. In this way, the ocean mirrored Poseidon's own nature, endless, shifting, alive, and unpredictable. Even mortals sensed the depth of his power. Sailors learned to read the moods of the sea, understanding that Poseidon's favor could guide them safely to distant lands, while his anger could claim them without warning. Fishermen offered prayers, builders of ships sought blessings, and coastal cities erected temples to honor him, not merely to appease, but to recognize the balance he embodied. The eternal dance of creation and destruction, of giving and taking, of life intertwined with the wild, untamable waters. And so, Poseidon reigned not just as a god of wrath, but as a master of life itself, a being whose soul flowed like the tides, whose power was mirrored in every ripple, every wave, every storm, and every calm expanse of the endless, living sea. Part 5. Legacy and Meaning. To the Greeks, Poseidon was a god who could never be ignored. He was not distant, nor was he impartial. His presence was felt in every wave that crashed upon the shore, in every storm that tore across the Aegean, and in every calm sea that carried sailors safely to harbor. He was to be respected, feared, and always appeased, for to forget him was to invite disaster, and to underestimate him was to tempt the very forces of nature he embodied. Sailors would pour libations into the sea before voyages, whispering prayers to the god who could give life or take it away with equal ease. Fishermen offered thanks for bountiful catches, while islanders built shrines and temples along rocky cliffs, places where earth met water and the mortal realm could brush against the divine. In Corinth, in Sunion, and on countless other coasts, Poseidon's presence was a constant reminder that the ocean was alive, sentient, and bound to the will of its master. But Poseidon's influence extended beyond fear. He was a symbol of the wild, untamed forces of nature, of the balance between order and chaos, of power that could create as easily as it could destroy. Every earthquake, every tidal wave, every shifting current reminded humans of their place within the vast tapestry of the world. The Greeks saw in him a reflection of the natural order, unpredictable, majestic, and eternal. In myth and culture, he inspired both caution and reverence. Heroes who sailed the seas, kings who sought dominion over lands and waters, and poets who wrote of gods and men, all recognized Poseidon's enduring power. He was a reminder that life itself is fragile, that human ambition must coexist with forces greater than ourselves, and that the wild and mysterious rhythms of nature are not to be conquered but understood and respected. Even today, the legacy of Poseidon endures. The sea continues to inspire awe, fear, and wonder, just as it did for the ancient Greeks. His story reminds us that nature is a force beyond control, that balance is fragile, and that power, like the ocean, can nurture life or sweep it away without warning. In every crashing wave, in every storm that rolls across the horizon, the presence of Poseidon lingers, eternal, untamed, and unforgettable. Poseidon was a god of contradictions, a being of immense power whose nature could not be confined to simple definitions of good or evil. He was not a villain, nor was he a savior. He simply was the ocean-given form, a living force that mirrored the world itself, vast, unpredictable, beautiful, and terrifying all at once. To behold him was to understand that life, like the sea, is never entirely in human hands, and that the currents of fate are guided by powers beyond mortal comprehension. His story does not end with storms or earthquakes, nor with the creation of islands or the birth of divine offspring. Poseidon's influence stretches across time and myth, touching the tales of heroes, cities, and gods alike. The wrath he unleashed upon Odysseus, the eternal rivalry with Athena over Athens, and the countless sacrifices made by mortals in his honor remind us that his presence shaped every corner of the ancient world. And yet, his legacy is more than fear or destruction. It is a lesson in balance, that creation and chaos, mercy and fury are intertwined, and that respect for the forces that govern existence is essential for survival. Sailors, kings, and poets alike learn to read the signs of the sea, to honor its master, and to recognize the enduring rhythm of a god whose domain touches every horizon. As we leave the roaring waves behind and look to the next tales of Greek mythology, we glimpse the threads of adventure yet to come. Athena's wisdom-shaping civilizations, Odysseus' perilous journey across cursed waters, and the countless stories where gods and mortals meet at the edge of fate. He was the tide that built worlds and broke them, the storm that never dies. Poseidon, god of the sea.
And that was the tale of Poseidon, the god who ruled the seas, shook the earth, and reminded mortals of the raw power that lies beneath the waves. The story is more than myth, it's a reflection of nature's balance. Beauty and danger, calm and chaos, creation and destruction. So, if you enjoyed this journey through the ancient depths, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more stories from the world of the gods. Next time, we will rise from the sea to explore new legends, perhaps the wisdom of Athena or the trials of Odysseus himself. Until then, stay curious, stay inspired, and remember, even the calmest waters can hide the might of a god. So, thanks for watching. See you guys in the next video. Bye bye.